for any questions, and use your hand so I can try and track where the people are wanting to ask the questions as we go through the evening. So without further ado, I will pass on to Kelly, looking back over the digital and over the responses that we received for the Talk Parish. So over to you, Kelly. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tyler. Hi, everybody. I'm Kelly Watts. I'm the Talk Community Lead for Digital and Engagement. So as Councillor Tyler said there, we just thought it might be a benefit just to have a look at what we've done over this last year. So as this is the last Talk Parish meeting for a number of months, we just thought we'd pull together what had happened. So we've had 7 Talk Parish meetings since March 2021. We've had 191 attendees, so that's an average of 27 attendees per meeting, and our highest attendance was in June 22 when we had 42 attendees. Some of the topics we've covered there are on the right hand side of the slide. So working together for the well-being of our communities, parish charter and shared services. We had the Children and Young People Survey, the integrated ICS, I've forgotten the word. The waste strategy, the state of the sector and volunteer services. Thank you. When your mind just goes a blank. Reducing carbon together. So we used the feedback from the survey that we undertook in April to influence the agenda topics there. So just to go back to the survey, so 49 parishes actually completed the survey, and 78% of those felt that the structure works of the meetings, and 90% found that the Talk Parish was beneficial for information, joint working and networking. However, we are aware that attendance at the meeting is declining, and we'll be looking to re-engage with the parishes at the start of the summer to see how we take the format forward after into the next year. So okay, so a quick update on the Talk Parish reference group. So at the beginning of last year, some concerns were raised, namely around communication and the setting of the agendas. So a small working group was established with the mandate to develop a terms of reference, and also feedback on how that reference group would be represented. So the terms of reference has been drafted, and there were 2 options tabled for membership. So option 1 was the representation based on PCN area, therefore providing a smaller working group, or option 2 was to open the group up to all members. So bearing in mind where we now are with Talk Parish, we still need to establish whether there is a requirement for this working group going forward. And as I said previously, I think as part of the re-engagement early in the summer, we'll be looking to see how and if that group needs to be established. That's it from me. So thank you all, and thank you for participating at all the previous parish events.
Thank you, Kelly. Has anybody any questions for Kelly at this moment in time? Can't see any hands, nothing's in the chat. Okay.
Oh, Councillor Tyler, you've popped yourself on mute.
Sorry. So we'll move on then to Mel for Keeping Herefordshire Warm.
Hi, yeah, thank you. So my name's Mel. I work at 7Y Energy Agency, which works with Herefordshire Council to provide Keep Herefordshire Warm, which is there's an advice line as part of that, which is to give sort of energy saving advice to anyone who calls in. And then there's also the advocacy side, which is what I do. So I'm the energy advocate for Herefordshire. So this is more sort of one-to-one support with people who are possibly in debt with their supplier, or struggling with their energy bills, or maybe if they're applying for funded home improvements through sort of local grants, it can be filling out application forms with them on their behalf, sort of in person, if that's what they'd like, as well as sort of going through energy bills if they struggle to understand them, if they're struggling to communicate with their supplier, and checking they're sort of comfortable with reading their meter, giving meter readings, why they need to do that, or if they've got a smart meter, understanding how that works. And then as well, the last few months have really been distributing the emergency funds from the household support fund. So this can be prepayment, the vouchers for if you're on a prepayment meter, pay as you go, or towards the cost of oil, as well as ordering solid fuel, ordering logs on behalf of clients as well. And sometimes it's sort of discussing, so sometimes there's clients who are in credit on their energy account, and the media's played a lot of part of the fear of putting the heating on and sort of looking at their bills and their usage and explaining that sometimes they're in a good position to put it on. It's often sort of elderly clients who live alone and have been quite affected by the media and all the news around energy crisis. So it can be sort of just a consultation, or speaking to someone to feel like they are in control of their heating and their electricity costs to some degree. And as well, we keep Herefordshire warm. We do a lot of signposting.
Sorry, Mal. We missed you a little bit then. Sorry, can you just go back over there after the energy crisis? Sorry.
What was I? What did you get? Did you hear about emergency funds? Did that bit come through?
Yeah, I think it was just when you mentioned about the energy crisis, and I missed something then. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah. So I was sort of saying around, because of the energy crisis and the increased price, I think the media has played a big part in people's sort of fear to put the heating on, and for clients where they have some credit on their account, they're in a position to put it on a bit higher than they think, then it's sort of just explaining a bit about that, and that sometimes they're in a good position to sort of increase the thermostat a little bit more and keep warm. And then I just mentioned we sort of go try and signpost where we can. We have quite good connections and have a lot of referrals from talk hubs, warm spaces, food banks, and things like that. And then we do sort of try and reiterate that support if we get clients that sometimes there's already support in place, they know about these organisations, but if they don't, just to remind them that there is quite a good network in Herefordshire. And as well, sort of more widely, we do the CPD training, which is open to anyone through Eventbrite, and it's online. My colleague does a sort of introduction to fuel poverty and awareness, which we've had a few parish councils come along to, and that's open to everyone as well. So that is a really good way to sort of find out a bit more if you're interested. And I can put links in the chat with all of this as well, and also our referral form.
Thank you, Mal. I can't see any questions. Anybody got any questions? Thank you for suggesting to put the links on the chat, and we can follow that with our minutes anyway as well, Kelly and Amy.
Yes.
Anybody got any questions for Mal in terms of what advice, anything else that you think might be beneficial between yourselves?
I've just got one question, Mel. Can you just give a bit of an overview in terms of how, if anybody wants to refer into you or to signpost to you, what's the best route, and how? I know you're going to pop it in the chat, but I think it would just be helpful. And also, obviously county-wide. Just give maybe a bit more of an overview in terms of the service delivery, if that's okay.
Yeah. So most of the referrals probably come through our online referral form. And there's this drop down for sort of reason for referral. There's the household support fund specifically. So there's a passcode, and organisations refer to us, and then we know that's a referral specifically for financial support. But within that, we look at advice as well as part of the whole picture. But yeah, the online form is probably the best way. The advice line number as well, which is on our website and I'll put in the chat. But we are quite a small team and the lines are very busy. So if you have got a client you're particularly concerned about, contacting me directly is probably the best way. And I'll put my email as well. But yeah, and then I can pick that up because I cover the whole county. So yeah, that's probably the yeah, either online, phone line, or me directly, really.
And is there a threshold for people to be able to receive the support from yourselves?
Not sort of general advice. Anyone can call into the advice line, but the financial support, the household support fund does have a sort of criteria of yeah, I mean it's low income or if you're struggling to pay for your energy bills, if you're in debt, and if you've had any other support from other, if you've had the maximum amount of household support fund from another organisation, then you may not be eligible. But there isn't a specific criteria as such. I mean, the funded home improvements through the government grants for things like solar panels and stuff like that, there's normally 31,000 is the gross household income cap. So in general, that's kind of where we would put people under. But yeah, anyone can get in touch really, in case by case.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for Mel?
Yeah, thank you.
No.
I can't see any, Amy. There's nothing in the chat. Thank you, Mal, for that. It was quite very interesting, and hopefully that's helpful for the parishioners to share amongst others. It's over to you now, I think, Amy, regarding the cost of living support.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
I've got a few slides just to go through. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Amy Pitt. I'm the Service Director at Herefordshire Council for Communities, and I cover leisure, libraries, museum, archives, customer services, and talk community. So I'm just going to give a bit of an overview tonight about how we're, through the council and talk community, how we're supporting people during this cost of living crisis at the moment. And there are a range of different things that we are looking at and continue to develop. And obviously we will circulate these slides as well as we go through. So as we know, we are sort of in the middle of the cost of living crisis at the moment. We're not sure how long this is going to go on for, but it doesn't look like it's going to change in the near future. And it's really unprecedented in terms of the level of poverty that we are seeing. And unfortunately, people are making some very tough decisions about how they can support themselves and also eat and how they can live. And also what we're also finding, and maybe what you're finding, and this is something we can discuss as part of the workshop, is actually this is affecting a very wide population now, not just those potentially who are on benefits and previously being impacted by poverty, but those families and those residents who are what we call just about managing, so maybe have a couple of jobs, who have a family, and who always people necessarily who are entitled to benefits, but they're just about managing, and it's kind of tipping in to that area as well. So so it's a sort of a difficult time for everybody at the moment. So some of the things that we're doing, we've now got 69 brilliant talk community hubs across the county that are up and running, that we're working in partnership with. There are a range of those. We've sort of color coordinated them there around where they are across the county. So we've got majority, obviously, as you can see, are in the dark green, which are in the city. And the most recent ones that have come on board, we've got Herefordshire Pegasus Football Club. And then we've got the southwest, which is sort of in the orangey colour, and then the yellows east and northwest in the green. These aren't the plan at the moment is that we're kind of trying to sort of a bit consolidate the hubs and work with the hubs more in terms of what's the need of the community, rather than sort of trying to get a lot more on board, although we do have some still in the pipeline. And obviously these hubs, they provide information, advice and signposting in the community for the community, and are led by the community. So have a range of signposting information that they can source people to direct people to through the talk community website, and information through that source. So on top of that, we've also launched back in October warm spaces, and some of you may already be aware of these or been using these. So these spaces are in all of the libraries across the county. So we've got 11 libraries across Herefordshire, and also then some of the Talk Community Hubs and others organisations have become the warm spaces. So these are spaces where people can go for a safe space, non-judgmental. There's sometimes got activities in, and where people can go along to have a coffee, or it's maybe a biscuit and hot refreshment, and sort of get a so if they're not able to afford to put their heating on or energy on during the daytime. This is at the moment currently just through the daytime, because we weren't really sure in terms of the demand that we would see through this, but in some we are seeing quite a bit of footfall now coming through the door, and that's sort of increasing. And we are currently looking at other opportunities to think about warm weekends, and warm evenings where families could potentially go during the weekends and evenings as well. All this information is on our Talk Community website in terms of where they are and what's being provided. And we have actually been highlighted as a sort of an area of good practice through things like Radio 5 Live, and also the county council county network as well. We've recently just had a case study been put into that as well. So it's great offer for people across Herefordshire in terms of what's available. Could you go on to the next slide? So yeah, so here's just a bit of information. You'll see we've put together a sort of pack where people can become a warm space. There is an online form if people want to come a space and be part of the overall numbers that we have, and we can obviously publicise that. There's also grants available of up to £500 to cover some of the energy costs and costs of some of the food or refreshments that if an organisation wants to become a warm space. So next one, please, Jane. So the other thing as well we've got available, which is, and it's online, but we do also have a number of sort of information that's out there in terms of leaflets, etc., through our Money on Your Mind. So this is an online toolkit that we launched last year. It provides a load of information around debt, financial management support, links into key organisations such as 7Y, where we just heard from Mel, but another load of other organisations. There's a lot of national links on here, a lot of local links to be able to signpost people to. And we've kind of tried to look to break it down so it's an easy navigation for people in terms of how it kind of relates to them. So, you know, I can't pay my bills or I'm not coping. So there are other things on there as well, our mental health support, etc. So what we're regularly updating this, so the team are regularly looking at this at the moment to making sure that, you know, that the links are up to date, it's available. And what we're trying to do is signpost people there as much as possible. So for that's where people to go to. It also gives some information around how people can budget and how they can feed families and themselves on a tight budget with healthy meals as well. So a very good source of information, and we've had some really great feedback from DWP of how with how sort of good it is to navigate. So please push that out to people and your residents. In addition, so as part of the funding that we received through COVID recovery, we work very closely with 5 debt and financial management support organisations. So we fund these through Talk Community, and they provide low-level debt and financial management support. They are trained volunteers, so now we have over 150 trained volunteers regulated by the FSA, and they are generally linked into, as you can see there, into the food banks, all the Talk Community hubs, and are seeing a range of families and individuals to support and get a lot of referrals in from the food banks. So to date, they've supported 550 beneficiaries with over £880,000 worth of debt relief. So which is great, and something that we're committed to continuing through through the COVID recovery the funding that we've got for another 12 months. So another thing we're looking at, and we've got a winter pressures leaflet that we've worked across partners. So we've worked across our health partners, including our mental health partners and other organisations, to get a leaflet out, because we know a lot of people still aren't online. And so we've got a number of leaflets now that are out in terms of in our hubs, or in the doctor's surgeries, in the hospital, in schools, in a range of different places, so people can have a very useful leaflet of information of where they can go to help around self-care tips during the winter. And that's sort of that's out there at the moment. Another thing that we've provided and we've continued to provide, so about 18 months ago, the government provided a pilot scheme for the Holiday Activity Fund. So this is for children and youths 4 to 16 years old who are eligible for free school meals, to have free activities and food during the holiday period. So we have 6 weeks of the year that it's funded, so 4 weeks in the summer, 1 week at Christmas and 1 week at Easter, and we've just finished this Christmas period, and we are seeing a gradual sort of increase of families and children taking part in this. Just before Christmas, you may have seen as well at Whitecross School, we had a Holiday Activity Fund sort of open day, an open event where we had pushing 200 children come along and attend, where there was food and things available as well. So that will continue. So the next one will be Easter. And we have over sort of 30 providers that have been offering spaces to over 8,000 places were available during the summer. We've also got a little bit of flexibility with this that allows us 15% of children who do access this now don't necessarily need to be eligible for free school meals. So recognising those families that I talked about at the beginning around the just about managing, and those families and children can be either identified through our early help team, our community organisations, or our social workers, or any other organisation that feel that actually a family or a child would benefit from this, and they are having some difficulties at the moment. We are like I say, we are lucky and that have that 15% flexibility to be able to provide those support. In addition, so last year, about sort of February, March last year, the government announced the Household Support Fund as part of its budget announcement last year. So this is funding that was available, and we had it in 2 tranches. We had a tranche of April to September last year, and £1.3 million came to Hereford, and then a further 1.3 from October to March this year for the Household Support Fund. And then in the budget announcement later last year, we should be getting further funding for the Household Support Fund. So in the criteria for April to September, we had to specifically support children and youths, pensioners, and then sort of the vulnerable group. So we provided funding for food, free school meal vouchers during the holiday period, during the summer holiday period, which supported over 4,500 children. And we also paid one-off payments of £170 a pension households who are on pension credit, and that was received through the post office, and that was we supported over 3,000 households with that. And then in addition to that, we worked really closely with some third-party organisations, such as you just heard Mel talk about, such as 7Y, CAB, a number of Community Foundation, a number of different organisations to provide funding and support with food, energy costs and essential household items. And you can see there in terms of the reach that was achieved during that period. And then in the October to March, which we're currently in at the moment, again, we had, like I say, we had the 1.3 million, and we've committed to providing free school meal vouchers again, and that was for the October half term, Christmas, and as well as then the February half term. And then the criteria for this was slightly relaxed. We didn't necessarily have to do it specifically for pensioners, so it was a bit more relaxed in terms of who we supported. And so we are again working very closely with third-party organisations and community organisations to be able to provide either food vouchers or food packages or support around those energy cost food and essential food items. All this information again is on the Money on Your Mind website page if you want to go out, if you want to go and have a look at that. So it's, there's quite a lot of information here that I'm just kind of sharing with you. And then finally, we had some reallocation of the COVID recovery funding that we had, about just under £500,000 to look at how we support as well around the cost of living crisis. And the current cabinet were very keen that we utilise that funding on the cost of living crisis for those who are most in need. So this has a range of areas again that we're looking to support. So we're working with Age UK to provide some cost of living champions for the people over age over 50. So one-to-one support to be able to give advice to those over 50. CAB support, obviously a great organisation there that provide that high level support to people in debt. Extension of that community debts, those community low level financial and debt management I talked about, so those 5 organisations are linked into a lot of them are linked into the food banks, extending our 7Y energy advocacy support, and also Age UK home energy checks. In addition to that, and apologies I haven't popped it on the slide, but I'll talk to you about it, and we can, Nikki, actually, if you could pop it into the chat. We've got Winter of Wellbeing grants available, so this launched this week. So we've got up to £50,000 to support community organisations to fund a range of support around social, emotional and physical well-being for families across Herefordshire during the cost of living crisis. So this will enable them to access free activities and warm refreshments as well. So we're looking for community organisations to come forward to do a very simple application process to say, this is what the needs are in my community, this is what we think we need to be providing, and this is how much funding we kind of need. So that application process is now open. That's called the Winter of Wellbeing Grants, and that's ongoing at the moment. We are also looking that we provide some free activities again during February half term, like we did last year through the Let's Talk programme. So then this is a range of activities on for families and children during that time, and working as well very closely with Halo to see what offer they can provide during February half term as well. So that's a bit of an overview, like I say, of what's going on at the moment. It's always evolving, always developing, and listening to our communities and our residents to actually what's needed, and utilising the assets that we have, and and the community organisations that are best placed to support our residents at this time. I'm very happy to take some questions. I think there's a couple in the chat. Yeah, there is. There's a question from Diane Tobin about a Ross area debt advice. Amy, I've just noticed you're looking to expand anyway. Is Ross on that sort of list? Do you know? I don't think we've got one. Nick, we don't think we've got one at the moment, Nikki. Have we in Ross? Or am I wrong on thinking that? But so what we can do is we work very closely as well with the Ross Community Trust. So we, and they provide a lot of help and support in that area. So we could pick that up. But it's a good point, because obviously the idea is that we do get the reach across all the market towns as much as we possibly can. But we can have a look at that.
Thank you.
We've mentioned about Nikki's put the Winter Wellbeing Grant. Is there a link to the actual application form, Nikki, that we could put in the chat? And
yes, then it's all on the one document. It takes you can click on the apply now and it takes you to the application form.
Okay, can we put it in the actual link in the chat for people to copy?
Yeah, I should be able to do that.
Okay, and there's some question regarding smart meters.
Yeah, I don't mind trying to answer that. That's all right. Yeah, no, it's a very good point, and it's something that come up against in Herefordshire. Smart meters, there aren't as many that have been rolled out because of poor signal area. I don't know, what the sort of approach to this is. If there's, I know they're always trying to improve on smart meters, but yeah, with signal issues, from our side of things, I don't know really. We're not involved in that so much, but yeah, all you can do is request, and often they'll say if it doesn't work in your area, but it is an ongoing problem. And also, Philip, your comment about reaching people who aren't online, which is again a good point and something we're aware of. We do have, I'm often out and about trying to drop off leaflets to places. So there are a few places in Ledbury, and often we do get Age UK. I think they have a sort of drop-in in the Master's House there. That's where we'll get referrals to people that aren't online. Most people that are referred aren't online. But yeah, if there are places that I'm missing or we're missing, then do let me know. My email is in the chat, so I can drop off more leaflets or think of, if there's a particular area that you know of, then let me know, and I'll be happy to sort of see how we can reach out a bit better.
Thank you, Mel. Is there any more questions? Amy, is there anything else we need to advise at the moment? Sorry.
I don't think so. I think, I mean, actually, Amy's just thank you, Amy. Amy's just popped in the chat that CAB provide pre-booked appointments with debt advisors in Ross and Y. CAP also provide debt counselling and budgeting courses there too. And Ross CDT are linked in and referred into both services as appropriate. So we do have a good level of support as well in Ross. I don't think so. I don't think there was anything, unless there's anything specifically for me. I think if we could probably move into our workshops now and our sessions. So the idea of this is now listening to, you know, a great example there of what's been provided through 7Y and some of the things that we are covering through the council. We just like to work with you and talk to you this evening to see your examples, only the challenges that you're facing or your residents are facing in the area, and what's going on in the communities to help and support that, and what initiatives have been the most successful. So thinking about how we can share any good practice, share any challenges, share anything around that, and also is there any further support or help that you might need, and if they feel there's any sort of gap in provision, touch on some of the things that we just touched on around the internet access. Also, is there any opportunity as well for sharing and working across neighbouring parishes, and also and share and support with each other. So a couple of questions there. We'll pop them into the chat. We're going to break out now. We've got about 25 minutes. We're going to come back into the group then at 8 o'clock, where then we'll share some feedback and any information. So I think then the team will just guide us nicely into a couple of breakout groups. Fingers crossed.
Hello.
Hello. Hi.
Hi, everybody. Oh, hi, Amy.
We were going to have 3 breakout rooms, Kelly.
Oh, okay.
We felt that perhaps 2 was better.
Oh, okay.
So you've got the added bonus of having me in your team, everybody. You're welcome.
Okay, great. Okay.
Good to see everybody.
So, Amy shared the workshop slide there. So shall I just read through again the questions? So the workshop questions: what are your communities doing to help and support? So it'd be really useful maybe if we could go round everybody and see what everybody's doing in their communities. And more importantly, what initiatives have been the most successful? And then the next question is there anything you need further help and support with, or where you feel there's a gap in provision? So is there anything where your parishioners are approaching you and you're not quite sure? Is there anything missing that we need to be considering? And then the final question is there support in a neighbouring parish? So obviously through these conversations, is there any parishes that you can share opportunities with across the parishes to maybe work together? So, okay. If we start with the first question then, so what are your communities doing to help and support? And what initiatives have been the most successful? Is there anybody who'd like to start or go first? Anybody like to share what they're doing?
I'll start with Ledbury.
Ledbury?
Beat
Okay.
me to it. Thanks, Philip.
Yeah. We've got 2 of us here from Ledbury, myself and Angie. I'm the mayor and chair of council, so obviously one of the subjects take a great deal of interest in because it's important to look after everybody. I think I'm right in saying, Angie, we've got 4 warm places.
No, we've got more than that, haven't we, Amy?
You've actually got 11.
Yeah.
11 now.
Wow.
Gosh, that's great. Well, there you go. And to be honest, one of the reasons I came on this was to learn more, because changes all the time. And with everything else that you got when you got, I'm head of a county council as well. So this is as much a learning experience as a passing on. So that's really great to know. And we've got a really very active and a great food bank, which really supports an awful lot of people in Ledbury and the area to place a lot possibly, for example. So I think I asked the question of several of the warm places, and I think the general feeling is, yeah, they're probably not used by as many people as you might expect. Maybe that possibly because the people who need it most are perhaps less mobile to get there. Maybe I don't know if that's an issue that we thought about, but that's certainly occurred to me. Although the people that go, it's obviously really important for them. I'm 75 myself. I live in a flat, and sometimes I have to put my fan heater on because I feel a bit cold. And I'm pretty active and fit. And I think, gosh, I can appreciate others my age who maybe not as much. You can get cold quite quickly. And when you do, you get quite lethargic and hard to do things. It becomes a sort of a vicious circle. Unfortunately, I'm not in that position, but it's how do we, I mean, is there a way of improving the way in which the people who perhaps most involved, it's very labour intensive, I think. That's part of the problem. I don't know what you think, Angie, but you might get better feedback than me because you might be more in contact with.
Well, yeah, if I can come in there. The help and support that we have in Ledbury, I have to say, this young lady who in the squares is next to me, Amy, has been amazing as our talk community representative. I think Amy's done an amazing job bringing all the groups together, but I think the groups have also played their part. We're lucky in Ledbury, we've got a fantastic community spirit. We've got volunteers coming out of our ear holes, to be honest. You shout, they say yes, you know. So, and the warm spaces, the work that's gone in with you and Phil and the group has been amazing, hasn't it, to be honest. Phil Wary from the Methodist Church is so supportive of a lot of things that we're doing. So I think it's our community that is making this work for us in itself. They recognise that things need to be done to help people, and they do it. That's the bottom line for Ledbury, really. But all the groups are supportive of each other. And like recently, somebody came to me with an idea, and I sent that to Amy because I know that Amy will be able to help with that. We'll be able to incorporate them into our group and everything. So, I think it's our community group that's our talk community that's made it work.
I agree, Angie. I think Phil, it was Phil at the Methodist Church I was particularly thinking of as the feedback he gave. And initially, the food bank works really brilliantly. In fact, the High Sheriff's coming over to our big breakfast event next week, and I'm going up with her to look at it. And every year when we have our big breakfast event, which is on next week in the town, we always make sure that people at the High Sheriff know and they can offer their support to our community as well. So I think that works really great. And the warm places, I must admit, I have seen, now you mentioned it, the green leaflets. They're in several places around the town. And one of the questions I wanted to ask was, Angie, do we think we can do more to help circulate those more? Or do you think they're probably adequately circulated? And other people the same?
I think our traders have been really helpful. We've got them in lots of places. Emma's been around delivering them. I think Emma and Livy together, and now that Livy's come back, they're working on that as well. First port of call, we send people if we're not sure where to signpost, and we go to Amy and say we're not sure what to do. You know, it's. I think we all know, don't we? And we're getting that message out. I can't see how the message isn't out there. We've got a WhatsApp group that is. I don't get involved in it too much, but I'm watching what's going on all the time. Something came up today, and I think it's really great how, as a community, again, we're just all. Somebody knows something somewhere when someone asks a question and someone can answer it. But I do think the point about how do we work with those people who can't get to the warm spaces? How do we help them? Maybe that's a question for the group to be looking at. And I reckon we'll find a way.
I think the other thing I would ask is that we're quite a big community. Obviously, we're a big town, and we are very fortunate in having a fantastic community spirit. Like in COVID, a volunteer group was launched with literally 4 figures within days. It was astonishing. But I'm mindful there are probably quite a few smaller parishes around Ledbury, like there are around other market towns,
Yeah.
who don't have access to the resources. So I think two key issues. One is getting to the people who, and I know one man, for example, who never leaves his place, and he's quite old and infirm, and I doubt he even knows about it, but he might need some help. But I think more so, how can we help a town like ourselves, perhaps smaller parishes around us?
But if you remember, we have done something around that as a council with Councillor Sinclair, with what he's done, because we've got councillors who have joined an older people's forum with the rural network, and we've put a leaflet out asking people if they know of someone who's isolated or anything around that, if they're happy to be recommended on to somebody, they can contact me, and then I can signpost that person to where they need to go to get them help. So that's something else we've worked on as well. We've put a leaflet around to everybody. I think it's gone to every house, doesn't it? I think Councillor Sinclair did all those.
Yeah.
So
I'd say overall it's working pretty well, more than pretty well in Ledbury. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
But are there any surrounding parishes that perhaps we can work with to help? And I don't think, I'm looking around, I don't think there's any that are close to Ledbury on the screen.
There's a few that come to our meetings, aren't there, Amy, that they are.
Yeah, so Ledbury Food Bank provides emergency food parcels to Colwall for people in need there, which is fantastic. We've got Bosbury joining the Warm Spaces network. And I can only second everything that Councillor Howells and Angie Price, fabulous clerk, has said, in that Ledbury is a fantastic community to work in. I feel incredibly lucky to be so supported and to have so many fantastic people to work with. I think they're really getting it right and are an exemplar, actually, of how it can look when we all work together. It's great place to work in. So thanks both of you for saying such kind things. Thank you.
But that's enough about us. You guys can talk then.
Yeah, I agree. Quite agree.
Thank you both. Like Amy says, really some really positive stories there, isn't it, about what's going on. Is there anybody else who'd like to contribute around what their communities are doing? Oh, Anthony, no? Has somebody got their hand up? Val?
Yeah. I live in a small village, so we don't have the resources that Ledbury Town Council has at all. But one thing that's been really successful was the development of our community Facebook webpage at the outbreak of COVID. And in a small community, it's served its purpose very well, because it's keeping people in touch with other people, and where help is needed, people can be signposted and assisted in that way. And even though it sounds very small in comparison to Ledbury, it's been a really helpful addition to our community.
So what sort of things does that Facebook group do as a group?
It's small things. I mean, it's advising people where they can go for help. In terms of food banks, we've got a group called the Tea Potters who meet on a regular basis, and that's a very informative group. So it's really the signposting aspect of it, which is really good. And just highlighting places is very convenient for me to pass on information that comes through to the parish council to help the people in the community. So from that point of view, it serves a very good purpose.
Anybody else? Jill Dixon?
I have to say, in the Pioneers group, we haven't done very much at all. We're a very dispersed sort of community, and I'm just wondering what kind of numbers of people you have come into a warm room, because I know they've tried it in Burgh Hill and it's been reasonably successful, but they only have about 12 people turning up, once a week. and it's just getting the people who need the help, getting them to the parish hall or whatever. I mean, I just don't see how people are handling the transport. You know, we've got a very infrequent bus. You might be able to get to the parish hall, but you'd never get home again.
In Ledbury, we're lucky we've got a community transport group, and they're working with the Talk community group, and they're very forthcoming, aren't they? Again, and they've offered their, you know, they've offered. Go on.
What sort of numbers are you getting to come to your warm room?
I haven't actually. Amy, you might be able to give the answer to that a bit more than me.
Yeah, so we're due to have a review actually at the end of January, because some warm spaces are better utilised than others. So we're going to bring them all together, have a look at who's using what facility, and whether or not perhaps we could merge some to increase the offer at some venues that are being better used. I know that one of the more popular places, you know, sometimes they have up to 30 people go along, but, you know, bearing in mind that it's a what 10,000 in Ledbury, must be nearly.
That, yeah.
You know, and I'm sure in the Pyons group, you know, you're dealing with much smaller populations. And I think actually saying that you're having 12 going along is fantastic. I think that's 12 people that, you know, are being supported by their community. And it's not just not having the heating on, it's connecting with neighbours, it's making friends, it's having a chat. And I think for those 12 people, it must be a real lifeline, and what a joy that they can reach out to their community and get support that way. So I would say don't be deterred by small numbers, because you're in small communities. You know, fantastic that 12 people are coming along. I think that's great. So well done.
No, it's not us. It's Berg Hill who are doing that.
Oh, well.
And they're about 4 miles away from us. And I can't think of how people would get from Cannon Pine, Kings Pine, West Hope. You know, we have a bus every other week in West Hope, one bus. You know, it's dispersing the information and getting to the people who might need the help, getting them to the warm room. I think the logistics are actually quite difficult. And the villages tend to be very sort of linear, you know, they're sort of strung out, whereas at least in Berg Hill community there is more of a sort of centre to the village, if you follow me. You know, we haven't done anything about it in the Pines group, I think because we all know that it's going to be hard work getting the message out to the people who probably need the help. And you know, that's why I'm interested to know how other villages are handling it, you know, small villages.
Yeah, so it could be that warm spaces aren't right for your parishes. You know, they are one of the elements of support that communities can look at, and there will be communities that it doesn't work for. So I would think about things like using 7Y Energy and the household support fund, services that you can put directly into people at home that might be more valuable in communities that are more dispersed and don't really have, you know, sort of nuclear centre, and perhaps trying to find a way, maybe by a newsletter or you know, maybe a postcard or something that can go out to people's homes that says, you know, this is the way that we can support you, these are services that you can access. We already do have that winter pressures leaflet that I'd be very happy to arrange you know, delivery to you of, that could go out to households. It might be that warm spaces isn't the one, but the information about other ways people can get support might be best for the people that you're supporting.
So do you mean you would generate the postcards and you would send them out to the addresses?
So as Talk Community, we have postcards that sort of detail information about where people can get support. We can arrange for those to go to communities, either through hubs or through parish councils, and then it's up to parish councils then to decide where it goes. So as Angie was saying, and Councillor Howes was saying, in Ledbury they put an information piece in their local newspaper. So I don't know if there is a newsletter or something like that that goes out in your parish that perhaps you could include this information in.
We've got the Pioneer magazine.
That might be a good idea.
But people pay for the magazine. It's not like a free newsletter. So that's why I was wondering who actually pays the postage, because, you know, postage is not insignificant nowadays. So, you know, if you're going to send something out, you want to make sure it's going to the right people.
Quite often, when we've got a large amount of things, when we want something to go out, the councillors all step up and they all take an area. And bear in mind, Ledbury's a big place. And sometimes I've only had 10 councillors out of 18 that are on the council, but they all step up and they take their bundle and they go and deliver them for us. It's great.
I was going to say exactly the same, Angie, that there must be people like councillors, others who say, give me a batch of a dozen or 20 leaflets and I'll drop off to
I'll walk the dog and drop them off
or whatever.
at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's probably the way to do it.
But I appreciate not all councils work like that.
Well, they do, but mainly in the summer. It's days like today.
Yeah. The other thing we do, Talk Community give out a lot of information electronically. So like Val was saying, we've got our council Facebook page and everything we get sent via Amy and anybody in relation to anything to do with community, and that we advertise it straight on our Facebook page, and then other Facebook pages within the town pick it up and it gets shared around the town very fast.
Yeah. I was going to ask the question, Amy, and I was conscious of what Val said about Morden and Lug, and it's what, 8 miles from the city, with probably fairly small possibility of resources, and maybe not areas of village hall which they can afford to heat up. Is it something that you can do in shared homes? Maybe people who've got, you know, a home and they'd happy to have some company for a few hours, so 3, 4, 5 people can get together, say, in somebody's home. Is that something that possibly could be done in the smaller communities?
Oh, we could certainly have a think about it. Top of my head, I think we'd be concerned about potentially leading on something like that, because we couldn't necessarily offer reassurances to people visiting someone else at home. You know, we've got lots of vulnerable people.
Isn't it?
It's a lovely idea. And I think would work probably for some people. I wonder if we could possibly set up a scheme or something that people could sign up independently. But it's certainly a good idea, Councillor Howes. I'll have a think about what we might be able to do there.
Because when we had the COVID volunteer group, and there were well over 4 because there was some sort of vetting, wasn't there, Angie, of the people who volunteered, just to make sure that they were said they were.
And I think Hereford helped us with that in some way. I think
you need to have something like that. But that's what happened during COVID, and that worked very successfully. And a lot of people were quite quickly. Vetting is perhaps a bit of a strong word, but there was reassurance that they were good citizens, reliable, and to be safe, because all those things are really critically important. But it's not beyond the realms of possibility to make sure that people could say, look, are you willing to offer your home? And then you, like with fostering, or, you know, with refugees, the same sort of process is well in place. And, you know, the same process that takes on board Ukrainian refugees could be quickly implemented to say, if you're willing to put your family together, we need to do a few checks along these lines. But then we can tell people locally that every afternoon they can pop around for a cup of tea for 2 or 3 hours, you know. Because it seems to me that there are probably lots of people in the small communities who could perhaps need something closer, more accessible, and people they know as well, because often that might be a problem for people. Oh, I'm a bit afraid I won't know anybody. So that might be a way of helping in a number of ways.
I think it's a great idea, Councillor Howes. I'll have a look at that. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who'd like to share anything that they're doing, or where they feel they've got a gap in provision? Nothing else?
Sorry, we dominated a bit Ledbury there, but hopefully we've got lots of good practice. We've got lots of good practice, so it's good to share it.
Really excellent, actually, because there's a lot going on. So it may help others consider what they could potentially take forward within their own areas, isn't it?
And as the clerk at Ledbury, I'm quite happy for anybody to email me if they want any help at any time with, or any ideas that perhaps we've looked into, or see if there's something we're doing that they might be thinking of doing. Give them support.
Okay.
And I must say, Angie, the staff as well are totally supportive, equally. You know, you always get a friendly and warm welcome when you go through the door, and people are more than willing to help anybody who's got problems with finding out where they can get the support they need.
Yeah, I think a key factor for us, and I've said this to Amy before, we've got a bit of foresight at Ledbury Town Council. We've employed a community development officer as part of our staff, which frees me up to do the job I need to do while we're still managing to work with the community on these sort of projects, because they can take up a lot of time. And if you know, parks don't have much time as it is. I work, I don't know how many hours a week, but if without my community development officer, I'd be lost. I think we wouldn't be where we are with it. We've had somebody covering on maternity. She's been fantastic, and like I say, Livy's back now. We've got 2 at the moment until Emma sort of fades out, but wouldn't be without them.
I know that I have to sign off the extra hours.
Okay, so I think we said we were going back at 1 o'clock, but I just wanted to ask whether there's any individuals in the communities who are reaching out with particular needs that we may not have thought about, or we may need to think about in the future. Or do you think we've got everything covered? Warm spaces, food banks, debt advice. Is there anything you feel that there's a gap that's not being filled? Yes, Jill Dixon?
This might seem a silly question, but I mean, we're all contributing to the food bank. In the Pines area, we send food into Leominster Food Bank every week. But if somebody in the Pines area needs to use the food bank, how does that happen? Because do they literally have to go into Leominster to pick up food? How does that happen?
Amy, do you know?
Yeah, I don't want to jump in again because I've done a lot of talking.
No, I do know how the food bank referrals works. It'd be really helpful, yeah, if you shared that.
So what they will do is, if there are people out in rural areas that are unable to get to the food bank, which of course they will be if they are using a food bank, they will use all means fair and foul to get a food parcel to that person. It usually means that they use a volunteer who's kind enough to run the food parcel to the person who needs it. If that's not working, they will use things like community transport to make sure that that food's delivered to that person. So it is part of the constitution of all of the food banks that they won't leave anybody without food, and not having means to go and collect a parcel won't mean that that person goes without. So one of the things that you could think about in your areas, and I entirely appreciate you know, not all communities are able to do it, is what we talked about in Colwall. So once every sort of 4 or 5 weeks, Ledbury Food Bank will take what would be a high number, but it's a very big village of dried good food parcels over to Colwall, and they are placed at certain pinch points in community. So there's one at the school, there's one at the nursery, there's one at the church hall, there's one in the grocery shop, for people who might disclose that they are in hardship to people in the community. So rather than that person then having to speak to Ledbury, make arrangements with Ledbury to get a parcel, they can actually get a food parcel where they live. So if anybody was interested in connecting with their food bank and perhaps considering storing a food parcel of non-perishable dried goods, sort of, you know, 2 or 3 days worth, just for an emergency, in their community, then do feel free to drop me an email. I'll put my email in the chat now. And I can connect you with your development officer in your area, because I think it's a really simple but positive way that you can support people. It does mean, you know, you can pop out in a newsletter or on the Facebook chat, no questions asked. If you're aware of anybody who might be struggling or you're in hardship, direct message us on Facebook or give the parish council a ring. We will arrange for this parcel to get to you so you don't have to go without food. I think that's just a really quick, easy way. You have to store a box, but most people have got some space somewhere. But quite a nice way, I think, to show the community that you're doing what you can to support them. So have a think about that, and if that might work, and if it's something you'd like to consider, I'd be very, very happy to work with you to make that happen.
Okay, all right. Yeah, thanks for the explanation.
I think they've forgotten us, Amy.
Anthony Snell.
Yeah, I'll just say a couple of things. I'm involved with Landbourne Parish Council. We've actually got a parish council meeting tomorrow. Now, I've obviously been listening to what you've been saying. I'm involved in the food industry. I'm supportive of all the things you've been saying. I'm just wondering if there's any, in our little group that we're with now, if there's any particular things you think I should be bringing up for the parish council meeting tomorrow night. Because we do have very good communication. Our chairman, Mark Hearn, is, we get communication all the time on everything that, Herefordshire Council is discussing and talking about. So, we get very good communication and quite a good turnout for these meetings, which we all try and attend if we can. So has anybody got an idea about something that I should bring up in the parish council meeting tomorrow night?
I would say with our example, Anthony, just motivating, leveraging the people who want to volunteer, because if they're asked, they will. So I would say, don't wait for them to say, look, we've got vacancies, we could do some help with this. Just come and give us your name and we'll find a job for you to do. I think people want to be not led exactly, but they want to overcome their own shyness. And if they know there's something for them to do, you'll find people who volunteer. Often they're just waiting to be asked. They won't necessarily do it off their own bat. So that would be one piece of advice I give. If you've got lots of people coming, then ask the question. And I'm certain you'll get some volunteers who will help from that.
And get your groups to work together. I think that is a key point. That's what we're finding. So we're all facilitating each other.
Right, I think we're all back now, are we? I think it looks like it. So I hope you found that sort of session useful. I mean, I certainly did in terms of our group. There were some really good conversations going on. And we're just going to do a couple of minutes now, feedback. So Amy or Kelly, were you sort of facilitating that, the other group in terms of feedback?
Yes, yeah, I was facilitating, so I'll do the feedback. So we Ledbury, very good example of a community working really well there. So they shared lots of ideas that was going on within their communities. So they've obviously in a larger community, so they've got lots of volunteers. They're very active. They have their food bank works well. They have lots of circulation of leaflets. The traders are very supportive of helping and supporting that. They have an amazing talk community development officer bringing all the groups together. So that was a real positive. Thanks, Amy. They also have a WhatsApp group and a Facebook group. So lots and lots going on there. Some of the issues they raised was around access to the warm spaces. So obviously for those that aren't living near a warm space, how do they access them? And also pointed out that this is all very labour intensive, but obviously lots of volunteers there. The smaller villages, one of them does have a community Facebook page that was set up during COVID, and that's working very well. So they use that as very much signposting and offering advice and support. Again, one of the other parishes raised around the dispersed community and how they can actually get people to the hubs, warm spaces, you know, problems with transport, etc. So some of the offerings of advice there were around maybe thinking about supporting people within their own homes rather than trying to bring people into a warm space, but getting out and trying to support those individuals at their own properties. And then an offer from Ledbury. I don't know if I want to share this wider, if they may not be very happy, but an offer from Ledbury, just saying if anybody does want any help and support with any initiatives or any ideas, then Angie's the lady to ask. So that's it from our group.
Thanks, Kelly. Thank you. And thanks, Angie, for offering that if it was for everyone. Great, thank you. We had some great discussions as well with ours, slightly similar-ish but slightly different. So Kat shared around the great offer that's for the food share. There's 3 in the city in terms of in South Wye, what's available there, and a lot of her experience that's going on there. Also seeing a lot of now an increase in terms of the number of people that are coming to access that service. You know, sort of on a Friday going from 50 to 70 people now who are starting to access, and actually the wider reach is even bigger than that because they're getting that support for their families as well. We also had some great information around what Madley are providing. Became a hub late last year, and they provide a number of range of offers and support as well in their community, and opened as a warm space and had 2 so far. So some really good and there was some really good then conversations then between our groups in the rural communities around how to get people I suppose through the door, know about the offer that's available, and also to come forward. What was also discussed is actually so actually when there is this underlying need, how do we encourage people to come through to get that support when needed before it gets to that crisis point. So some of the things we talked about was being really consistent. So if you're open on a certain day, make sure you know it is open there and it's consistent so people know you're there, and really and building the trust of people. So they may come for one particular issue, but actually there's often a lot of other complex issues that gradually, as they build trust, they'll come out and talk to people about that. So some information around that. We also talked about some challenges potentially of people wanting to attend. They may want to attend the warm hubs, but potentially some of that stigma around that, certainly in rural areas. When a lot of people know each other, they know the volunteers. So one of the conversations we also had about is how do we potentially putting activities on, so maybe not be calling it a warm space, but it's a coffee morning, or there's some activities there, bingo, etc., that people go to, that there's that's kind of maybe reduces that stigma of that. And one of the things was touched on is around the volunteers, the number of volunteers coming forward and how we can kind of encourage that, and actually putting all this on is through the great effort and free time that people like yourselves do. So how do we sort of kind of encourage that? And it's always often a bit of a difficulty getting the number of volunteers. It's often the same ones coming forward. So I think it was for me some really good conversations, some great opportunities to share around it with each other, and what's going on, and there was certainly that within our group, and hopefully you found it useful. We'll obviously share all the slides that we've got tonight. Mel shared a lot in the chat around what's going on with the with 7Y and that access as well through that. And as I've mentioned to our group, please, if you need some support on any of this or want to link into Talk Community, we are here. We've got Talk Community Development Officers in each of the areas, but please do make contact if there's anything specific as well for your area you think's a need that might be beneficial to others to know about. Then we can often share that through our newsletter as well. So that kind of, I suppose, rounds it up from those groups. Councillor Tyler, I don't know if there's anything you wanted to cover off before we kind of close it for the evening.
Oh yeah, thanks, Amy. Having regard to the volunteer crisis and people, trying to find volunteers, I'm just wondering whether the parishes can list the volunteer support on the HFOS, because I know they have a website which you can list for required volunteers, and to see whether that would bring in more help in the wider communities and rural areas, whether we can link that as well. Jane, to sort of share that information. Also, my biggest worry is what Kat Hornsey was saying, Hornsey, regarding the language and literacy barrier. I know we have got support in the council. I'm just wondering whether we can offer that through Talk Communities if there is that complication and they need that support. And then finally for me is, I think we were talking about, Diane was talking about perhaps with her parish talk letters about doing a leaflet and signposting information to go out to the rural areas. And I'm just wondering whether, as we got something on like that, we could share on our Talk Community website, so people can, with the parishes, sort of link in on that, and then perhaps print off. I'm not sure, but those are the things I've picked up this evening. And obviously, that initial walk through the door and not knowing what's behind it. And, I'm trying encouraging my residents to go into our community hub, and it is a warm hub, but more often than not, there's more activities going on and just people in there just having a chat and just sharing concerns, and obviously dropping off for food donations as well. So, I've encouraged quite a few people through my hub, but it's that initial walk through the door, because you don't want to be seen to be a need, but it's not a need, it's to support each other and, grow the communities like we did through COVID. So, I've nothing further to add. It's just been a really good, interesting meeting this evening, and thank you all for your time. Like as Amy has said, if you need any further support, the team is available, and email them or just access further information through Talk Community website. Excuse me. And thank you all again for attending, and I hope we can grow our communities and support everybody who's in need.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Amy.
Just before everyone disappears, just a very quick, yes, what we'll do is we'll send out all the links and everything that's available from tonight. So actually, if you do want to put together a newsletter, it's there. We'll also, I'm just thinking, Jane and Kelly, if we can think about our next newsletter maybe just being a focus on cost of living. So then again, it's an easy one just for people to lift and shift onto their own newsletter or pop onto the website or anything like that as well, to make it easy for you. We're very happy to look at that. And as Amy's put in the chat, we have got a number of winter pressure leaflets. So if you want them out in your areas, want them out in your community halls or etc., then please get in contact again, because we can get them out to the Talk Community Development officers to you all. That's not a problem. And then just one final thing, this will be the last Talk Parish meeting for a few months now. As you know, we have elections in May, and we start our PERDA period on the 6th of March. So we won't be holding another Talk Parish now until after the elections. But please do keep in contact with us, and we'll obviously we'll keep pushing things out through the Talk Community newsletter anyway. And yeah, if you need anything, please do contact us. But thank you very much for all coming tonight and attending. Again, a great conversations and some fantastic work that's going on. So, and thank you for that as well.
No, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, the team.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Have a good evening.
Hope we can join you the other side of the election.
Yes. Yeah.
Definitely, Philip.
Yeah.
Good night.
Bye, everybody. Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.
Amy, did you want to stop the recording?
Yeah, if you're able to stop the recording.